Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 916 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW. But not only that, this will serve as your AEW Redemption preview. And not only that, Vintage Chris Vanini will be joining the show in the early part of this episode to break down Season 3 of WWE Unreal. So stay tuned. There is plenty of performance-enhancing audio making its ways to your earholes. Before we get to all of that, we need to get to this, and that is a reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. Make sure you follow us on social media at Getting Overcast and hit the link in our profile to join our free Slack channel, subscribe to the show, and do plenty more stuff, including shop for wrestling merchandise. Again, across the board, find us at Getting Overcast. Now, we are only going to have Vintage Chris Vanini for a brief period of time, so we're going to get to WWE Unreal at the start of the show. Then we will move to your NXT breakdown, and then, of course, your AEW breakdown from Dynamite and Collision, and then on the back end, the AEW Redemption preview. There are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you so choose. As always, I hope you listen to the entire show. Also, a programming note before we move on. Of course, this weekend, we will have your AEW Redemption analysis. I'm guessing that will be published at some point early Monday. I only say that because it's going to be a Sunday night pay-per-view. It runs incredibly late. I have preparations for work the next day and a ton of stuff to do. I just don't know how I can execute the analysis immediately as soon as the show goes off the air, but I'm going to try. So it'll either happen late Sunday night, early Monday morning, or a little bit later on Monday. Either way, you will get your AEW Redemption analysis. In terms of next week's schedule, Silver King and Vintage, we're not yet sure how we're going to manage everything. Definitely next weekend on Saturday and Sunday, you will have your WWE SummerSlam Night 1 and Night 2 instant analysis. We're not yet sure whether we're going to do 1 or 2 Ultimate Preview episodes. We did 2 this year for WrestleMania. That was awesome. Like, it was the right decision for us. SummerSlam has not been built as strong. There may not be as many matches. There may not be as much to talk about. So coming out of Raw on Monday, we may just be able to do a singular WWE episode on Tuesday. Maybe we do a full breakdown episode on Tuesday and then 1 combined Ultimate Preview on Wednesday. Not yet sure, but you will have at least 1 midweek WWE episode, 1 midweek NXT and AEW episode, and then 2 WWE SummerSlam instant analysis episodes next weekend. So plenty of performance-enhancing audio hitting your ear holes before this week and next week are out. Vintage, welcome to the show. You and I are both up against it today, so we're not really going to waste any time getting into this breakdown of WWE Unreal Season 3. Calling it a breakdown, also somewhat of a review as well. My general thought off the top about this season is, for many like you and I who wish WWE was less PG and more real, you can say what you want about the content on WWE Unreal, how much of it is reality, how much of it is scripted narrative that they want to tell on the show. What we do get on this series, and it's been the same for each of the 3 years, I noticed it more in Season 3, is we get to hear these wrestlers speak as their authentic selves, cursing up a storm, whatever that might be. And that to me is nice, to be able to see and hear from the real people, regardless of the context.
And along those lines, this felt like the realest
It did.
of the 3 seasons. It might have also been the least interesting, but that's because of, I think, some larger choices that we can discuss in a moment. But yeah, a lot of F-bombs in this one, partly because it's a lot of people getting injured. And so it's a lot of F-bombs when people are getting hurt. But yeah, it was, I enjoyed it. But I feel like there were larger themes that they could have dove into more that they didn't.
For sure. Liv Morgan curses like a sailor is what you and I are trying to say. And I'm here for it. I love it.
Yes.
But she does. It's just simple as, look, she's from what? I forgot the name of the city. She's from New Jersey.
New Jersey.
It's not that surprising though. All right. So let's go episode by episode. That's the way I took notes, Vintage. Some of these may just be stream of consciousness based on, what I was seeing and what I was thinking at the time. Stop me at any point. And if you don't stop me, then you can, of course, give your notes on the back end. So episode 1 was called The Why, heavily focused on John Cena. For all the continuing deserved criticism of Logan Paul, he does seem to actually care about wrestling. We talk about him liking it and being good at it. It's another thing to care about it. He does seem to care, and seeing John Cena teach him intricacies in the ring, I thought was pretty cool. I don't want to spend an hour relitigating this, but as hard as they tried to explain it away, it was tough to believe aspects of the heel turn as it was described in this episode for Cena. And it spoke volumes that they quickly ran through it and did not get into all of the details that we thought they would cover. Oh, this didn't work, so then we did this. This one really worked, so we stuck with it. They really just skipped over a huge part of the heel turn. And though it was nice to hear that we were right in assuming that within the SummerSlam match itself, Cena was supposed to turn babyface there, not before. Of course, they still did it beforehand, and that's the way it went down. Furthermore, the explanation from Cena that it was valuable to get squashed by Brock Lesnar, that way Lesnar could get built back up and give his power away, presumably to Obafemi, it was incredibly flawed logic. Lesnar is a brick shithouse, and he did not need to get put over by anyone, let alone Cena, for fans to see him as a brick shithouse. Same thing goes for Drew McIntyre's match being replaced by AJ Styles, with Cena suggesting those tweets asking fans for their input were real. McIntyre should have fought Cena instead of Lesnar at WrestlePalooza if he wasn't going to fight Cody Rhodes, and Styles should have already been planned as part of his tour. And lastly, when it comes to Cena, they did an incredible job, conversely, showcasing the Cena-Styles match, how they called some of it on the fly. I thought that was the best part of the episode, maybe the second best part of the entire season.
Yeah, like Cena says, the fans are they're chanting for more finishers, so we start doing them, and then they call for the 619. I can't do the 619, so I tell AJ to put me in the ropes, and then I tell him to clothesline me. Or I put AJ in the ropes and then tell him to clothesline me, so we don't have to actually do the 619. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Cena telling Logan Paul when they're training, the side with the armband on is the side to dive onto. That was like, I was like, has that always been the case?
Yeah, it seems like it was.
Cena?
Yeah.
That's a super little thing that's so interesting that you look back on his entire career. The armband on the headband on the arm.
It's on.
Like, oh wow. Those moments with Cena, the candid moments, are much more interesting than him speaking to the camera.
Right.
When he's on company mode and just kind of saying things. Same when he knows he's on camera talking to talent backstage. He came across as very fake there.
Yes.
But the Cena AJ stuff was, probably maybe the best, one of the two best parts of the whole season.
Other notes from this episode, showing the Seth Rollins injury at Crown Jewel and how he handled it both live in the moment and the immediate aftermath was kind of wild. Like knowing he was screwed right away, trying to figure out the WrestleMania timeline while in gorilla position before he was even fully diagnosed. It was obvious back then, but made even clearer here how much that screwed up plans. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There was a lot of focus on Braun Breaker getting built up in this episode. Liked how appreciative he was of everyone for their help and advice, for Roman Reigns putting him over in that moment. You can just tell how much all of this means to him and how it may not have been his original dream, but it's his dream now. And then the whole AJ Lee return through CM Punk's eyes, it was incredibly heartwarming. You could really feel her nervousness given the circumstances of her return in gorilla position, like the way she was pacing. People tried to talk to her, and then she had that nervous laughter energy kind of coming back to them. So, and we'll talk about this more, but the CM Punk AJ Lee on this season was just really sweet, really authentic. It was some of the most authentic stuff we got. So season 2, the last time is now. Cena putting over basic Punkonomics after the fact was really cool. Even cooler was the real off-mic audio of Punk going over to Cena in the middle of the segment and saying, I'm going to miss you. It's those moments that make watching WWE Unreal valuable. Though unfortunately, that's not entirely what the show is about. But when you get those, it's awesome. Rollins confirmed, as we knew, the plan was for him to go into WrestleMania with the World Heavyweight Championship. Interestingly, he said the quote, "I have more past than future" line all the way back here in 2025. He uttered the same thing to Roman Reigns when they started their build for the SummerSlam match, which is happening next week. Also, it's clear how tough this Vision situation was and the way it unfolded. Both Rollins and Paul Heyman ensuring Breakker understood the importance of spearing the shit out of Seth. That was another valuable part of this episode. There's already been a lot of talk about WWE not capitalizing on Braun's momentum and stuff. But as Paul Levesque said, he got called up with limited experience. And the entire point of the Vision and building it as a long-term faction was to help him go from green to gold. And as we saw in subsequent matches and storylines, he was not ready for that right away, which is precisely why WWE knocked him down a peg. That does not mean they're never going to build him back up again. It just means they delayed it, maybe a year. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize there's more to consider than popularity and potential. Just because someone gets called up and they have a lot of potential doesn't mean you need to go with it right away. I have some more, but Vintage, did you have notes on Vision or any of that?
Yeah, well, I'll say my Braun stuff for episode 3. That's when the big kind of viral moment perhaps came from the show. But episode 2, Heyman talking to Braun about how hard to spear Seth on the turn and saying, this is what pays everyone's bills. Bring that shit. I got fired up watching that.
Yeah.
Like that was a really cool part of that as well. I'll save Braun's stuff for next episode, but yeah, more on this, the Cena stuff you can get into.
Sure. Also from episode 2, Levesque putting over Liv Morgan, calling her a ring general after a match that must have been super fulfilling for her. Just considering we've discussed how far she's come in ring over the prior few years, it was tough to see her get so emotional recalling the shoulder injury, showing the creation and execution of Cena's Survivor Series match with Dominic Mysterio. The concerted effort to not just include, but feature all 3 women was something I specifically hoped was part of the season because that was such an underrated part of his final run. Cena got a legit laugh out of me at the end.
On the Survivor Series part, really funny moment where Liv apologizes for the low blowing and hopes she didn't hurt him. And Cena says, basically, I don't wear spandex. I wear denim for a reason. There's a lot of give there. That's another little thing that Cena's always done.
There's not a lot of give because it's tight. So there's only so many places for it to go is what he was trying to say.
Well, but his being more loose and baggy, I that's how I took it.
Oh, no, I took it that he's saying it was tight. It was all packed together. So there's only so much that she could do.
Oh, I took it as I don't wear wrestling pants like everybody else. It's really tight. My stuff's baggier. So it's maybe I had it wrong.
I thought it was because it was tight, but it's heavy material. So it's not as you can't. That's the way I took it.
Maybe. But that was a cool moment there doing the whole Survivor Series thing and seeing Liv and Cena backstage.
Sure. Cena was clearly enthused with this idea of fighting and tapping to Gunther in his last match. Vintage, you and I loved it in the moment. There was obviously a lot of outside criticism at the match, the way it ended. There's been a lot of stuff Cena's been gung-ho about that perhaps did not work. I maintain this one did almost flawlessly. Given WWE botched the camera cuts when Cena took the camera and put it on Stu during his final entrance, I was so happy they gave Stu time on episode 2. But not only that, they showed the full camera perspective the way it should have aired that night. So better late than never. And then lastly, getting commentary from Punk and Bayley as they marked out watching that match live. That was a beautiful addition. And it was fun to see Cody and Punk scheming about putting the world titles on Cena's shoulder and Rhodes having one of those guttural laughs that many of us guys get to have when we come up with a great prank on our friend and we know it's going to elicit a huge reaction. Getting the real audio of that interaction, seeing Lyra Valkyria crying her eyes out. This was extremely well done. Behind the scenes of this match and that night might have been the best part, not of the season, but of the entire series. It was the most real and authentic that this show has largely been to this point.
And Punk saying he had seen the clip of Batista and Cena doing the same thing to Hulk Hogan, and that being the idea for him and Cody to do it to Cena. I didn't realize that. That was really cool. That made it even
you didn't know that that's where it came from? That's interesting.
No, I didn't know that. And maybe people pointed that out at the time, but I didn't. Sure. I didn't, because I was out of wrestling at that time. So I thought that was really cool. And yes, I'm with you. still maintain Cena tapping out was a great storyline, a great way to do it. He's smiling. Remember, he got out of it several times, which they showed. He just realized he didn't have it in him anymore, and it's a mercy tap.
Yeah.
I still liked it. Cena explaining it here made even more sense. He said, like, as soon as they thought about Gunther, him tapping out, the guy who never gives up giving up, was the finish they had in mind from the beginning. And talking about, as they're kind of explaining how they want the camera to shoot that at the end, I thought was really cool. And I had not seen the videos of Gunther being walked out of the stadium afterward.
No, yeah,
and berated
cool.
by fans. I guess I didn't see that at the time, but that was really cool. I was like, whoa, like that's great heat. So
between that and Raw 2 nights later, I mean, he was red hot. Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
And for whatever issues I do have with the way they handled Cena's final year on this season of WWE Unreal, they knocked the last match out of the park. And to be somewhat fair, that's the most important part, of, Cena's retirement. Episode 3, Rise and Rumble. This, I know, is going to be a discussion here. Something that needs to be remembered about these shows is that you are often seeing 30-second, sometimes 1-minute snippets of multiple hours-long creative meetings. So when, for example, Breakker is brought up as a potential Royal Rumble winner, and then it's mentioned that making that move may be shoving him down some people's throats, first of all, that's a perfectly fine perspective to take, especially in a meeting with your peers where you're discussing all the potential outcomes. But secondly, he was not dismissed as a winner in that moment. They likely decided it later that, hey, after all of our subsequent meetings and all of the options that have been thrown out, Breakker's not the one for us to go with this year. Beyond that, history is on their side with that decision. How soon everyone forgets what happened with Roman Reigns. Granted, the fan base is different now, but Roman was elevated too far, too fast. He was booked too strong, too early. He was not ready for the moment as a character, but more importantly, he wasn't ready as a person, and fans weren't willing to accept him. Breakker has literally shown us that in big matches, he is still not all the way there, and the gimmick needs refinement. We talk about it all the time. The gear is stuck in the past, all that type of shit. Can you imagine someone winning a World Heavyweight Championship with badass right across their stomach and those lettering? It looked terrible. He's only 28 years old. WWE had other massive names it could use, so it didn't go with him in 2026. By the way, if he had won the Rumble and then lost at WrestleMania, let's say he didn't go all the way, people would have gone nuts. How dare you have him win the Rumble and not give him the title? That's because WWE refuses to go with young guys. It's clear the way he was talked about on this season that they see him as a future top star. So I don't understand why people saw a 15-second clip from this show and said, oh, they're burying Braun Breakker.
I didn't take it. Everything you're saying is correct. Like the way they handled it, I understand that. I kind of disagree because I remember hearing from a lot of people at the time upset that Braun didn't win. They wanted Braun and all that kind of stuff. The reasons against it are fine. But this is the kind of stuff I don't like having in this show because it then creates these narratives outside.
Precisely.
Which is the reaction, the clip going viral, making it seem like WWE's not into Braun Breakker. I don't think that's
who was one of 10 people featured on this season, by the way, and was like the fifth most prominent of those people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's different than like the Chelsea Green thing last season where it felt like they used it to try to drum up support for her. That's not what you would do with Braun here. So this is the kind of stuff I didn't like in this season and show, really, in general.
It's like WWE doesn't take a second to think, how is this going to be perceived? Is it going to be perceived in a positive way or an inherently negative way or a neutral way? And they put a couple things on these episodes that in context are totally fine. Taken out of context are not. And there's people online who love to take these things out of context because it's their goal to paint WWE in a negative light as often as they can, which again, they do that themselves plenty. I loved seeing how much Liv loves being a wrestler, how much it means to her. That was apparent on this episode. Rollins said he had not properly main evented WrestleMania because he had not been on the marquee for the closing match of night 2. That's a totally fair opinion for him to have as someone who has main evented night 1 twice. If you've never done either, being the final match on a WrestleMania night is a main event, plain and simple as far as I'm concerned.
It's kind of the same thing with Punk too, where it's like the Roman Punk issue was the real main event. But yeah, he's never. Also, by the way, it's never been a one-on-one match. It was a triple threat and a tag team.
But
those are two things.
I don't discount Punk's tears when he main evented night one. Those were genuine. It meant something to him.
No, but he also thought that was going to be. He also thought that'd be the only one.
Oh, of course he did.
I think you could tell. In this season, he did treat this one a little bit.
But that's what I'm saying. Once you've main evented night one, then you can say, well, night two. But that doesn't. You don't want to diminish night one for everyone else. Is what I'm trying to explain. It's like if you go and date Brooke Burke, then you're like, well, now I only want to date models. I don't want to date anyone else. I know that's a dated reference for some. She's older these days, but hopefully everyone understands what I'm saying. Becky Lynch watching, or I guess not watching, Rollins' surgery was tremendous, as was Rollins having her turn on SmackDown immediately after he woke up from surgery. I thought that was very funny. I saw people decrying Bruce Pritchard for saying Obafemi and Trick Williams would not be ready when they get called up. And again, I feel like this is a media literacy issue because he was simply trying to state they need to be brought along slowly because they don't have the experience. They haven't done it before. The main roster is not NXT. One line out of what was probably, again, a multi-hour long conversation. Do people want to see some realness? Or do you want to have WWE candy coat everything and make it seem like they know exactly who's going to be a star and they never make a wrong decision? It's like, what do you want this show to be? I think WWE is trying to give you some realism. And if you're just going to take them out of context every time they give you that, they're going to stop giving it to you. Like, I don't understand where people's heads are at with that. A couple more notes. I'll let you get,
it was like 9 months ago. Like, it's easy to say it now. Like, yeah, clearly, look, they're great. But it was fair to be
7 months ago. Yeah, it was 7 months ago. True. But it was 4 months before WrestleMania. And Trick, still these days, everyone knows he has charisma, but in the ring, he's not there. We talk about it all the time. Trick watching the elephant urinate was probably the scene of the entire season. Agree or disagree?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona, they could easily lead a WWE couples reality show. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to tell when wrestlers on this show have backgrounds in college athletics by the way they seek approval, coaching, all that stuff from their leadership. It was blatantly obvious in this season that Oba, Trick, and Braun were all college athletes. Of course, two of them football players, one of them a track star.
Yep, 100%. And that's why WWE leaned into it.
Episode 4, Life Happens. This was a stark reminder that WWE presently has Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Stephanie Vaquer, and Naomi all out of action, with Becky Lynch also not wrestling and Asuka suddenly semi-retired. That's no excuse for other women not sliding into their places, getting featured as much, being given screen time, but that is a substantial list of heavy hitters all absent at once, and it was clarified for me during this episode. The feature on Vaquer was better than any character development she has received in her entire career, explaining the purpose of the face paint and what happened in her private life. It's such a great way to get fans attracted to her. That would have crushed as a vignette on Raw, and the production of it feeling real. It's something missing from every wrestling show on every brand. Every interview, every backstage segment feels fake. Why can't we get a sit-down conversation like we got with Stephanie here? She is going to be an even bigger star when she returns to WWE because of this show. That entire part about WrestlePalooza, literally living out her dream, tremendous. And last here, I'll let you get back in. Levesque learning he lost Breaker to the hernia live in gorilla position and realizing that his roster has taken so many substantial hits, but was about to take another one on the road to WrestleMania. It's what we spoke to so often on this show earlier this year. We can say whatever we want about booking decisions, moves we believe are mistakes, bad creative on TV, and we have said that plenty over the last 7 months. But holy shit, man. I hope people saw the reality of how blown up these plans really got, starting with Rollins' injury onward. 3 straight Vision leaders mow down 4 of 5 members inside of 6 months.
Yes. And the Stephanie Vaquer part, I wrote down, like, where was this when she was wrestling, when she was champion? Like, This is the kind of thing she can't, doesn't do many promos in English. It's hard to connect with her as a character, as a person. This bit on the show did that tenfold. Like, where was that? Do need more of that, because that was really good. And yeah, the Braun injury, the hernia happening when he was screaming, that's just kind of wild how it happened. And there was so much injury stuff on this episode. I wanted them to, I know they weren't going to, but like pull back and like look at the life of a wrestler. what does it mean when you get hurt and suddenly you're not on TV, or if you're older and you get hurt and you worry if your career is going to be over? They talked about, the firings in the last episode, but like, why is WWE having so many injuries? Is that a thing the company is concerned about? Like, it was such a theme of this season on accident because of who they happen to be tracking and what happened. That, like, that's something that, beyond the mat and Wrestling with Shadows back in the day, you kind of get into of like, what does it mean for a wrestler when they get hurt? What is their life like? How worried about what happens next? Seth kind of got into that, not being sure like how much he's got left. But there's like a larger theme that they didn't really address because they only were doing it through each individual story.
Totally. And lastly, episode 5, the grandest stage. Disappointing, but not surprising that the Drew McIntyre title reign was just passed over here. I wonder the circumstances of that. Timing, Drew not wanting to participate, WWE saving him for another time, or literally just thinking it's not important enough. Dominic having the same reaction to Liv getting stripped on stage at WrestleMania as you and I did. That was enjoyable. It was mentioned by Liv that they were asked to make some time up in their WrestleMania match, which is effing ridiculous and plays into our live comments at the time that this match was way, way, way too short. If it was in the first hour on TV, I would have understood why that might have been necessary. That match
and not because Stephanie Vaquero was hurt, which she also confirmed.
That's what I was getting to. But
it was for time.
That match was the co-main event. And the two matches around it went 18 and 23 minutes. It was also, if you remember, one of the best built storylines for both nights. Now, to what you just said about injury, Vaquer did emotionally share in the next scene on this show that her body was broken down. She needed a break after the match, which explains her extended absence now. It does not seem like that was the reason the match was so short. If she went 8 minutes, I said this at the time, you can't tell me she couldn't go 12. It's just tough to stomach seeing the women continue to get marginalized in that way. The Pat McAfee inclusion in the Cody-Randy Orton feud, it was explained by Levesque just as we did on this show. They saw him as a tool, ironic to call him a tool, to get heat on Orton, who was otherwise being cheered. Rhodes then tried to explain how it made sense because it would make hardcore fans mad too, not just the casuals. Again, these are things we discussed on this podcast, but also, again, none of that changes how McAfee became way too big a part of the storyline and how his conclusion was entirely unnecessary. Heat could have been put on Orton in a variety of ways, and of course, they did not explain the how and why of it in the first place, nor did they inject Jelly Roll into it, though they did show him do the move. And lastly, we saw how bad Cody got busted open at the end of the WrestleMania match, but man, the backstage footage of him was gnarly, and while Orton may be hurt in reality, we don't know. The way he was moving around and talking after this match, it sure did not look like anything was wrong with him in the immediate aftermath. So they did the punt kick, and now he's just been gone ever since WrestleMania.
Cody just being like a maniac for wrestling and just being like, that was all great. Oh, yeah, I got cut up a bunch. But like after the match, he's just like fired up because he thought it went really well because he got busted open in multiple places. That was like really funny. And you can see that's the love of pro wrestling that Cody is. Everybody's like, oh my God, his eye, is he okay? And Cody's just like, oh my God, that was awesome. That was awesome. It's the main event. So that was really funny. I guess we didn't get into it, or maybe you said it quickly and I missed it. Other best part of the show is CM Punk, AJ, and the dog Larry dying, and the tears from Punk talking about it. Go when they donate the money to the charity, and he doesn't really want to be there because it's making him sad. And I had missed, because we knew he had the tattoo of the paw print on his chest, and when he goes up to the top rope to jump off onto the table out the ring, patting the dog paw on his chest as right before he makes a jump. I missed that in the moment. Very cool, very touching. Again, very real, a very real part of the show. Emotional, and it touched me. I teared up watching all that stuff.
Yeah, CM Punk and AJ were like the fulcrum of this entire season, just their emotion, both in terms of AJ returning, Punk's pride watching her main eventing WrestleMania, and losing Larry. Like, they really dominated the season. And to kind of wrap up with what you said at the beginning, and I'll get you out of here. I know we both have time limits here. This was probably the least eventful season, also the least pull back the curtain season. But I got to tell you, it felt like the most realistic and most enjoyable to watch. I went through this and I wasn't really frustrated outside of with John Cena's thing, and we know why they hid, portions of that. But outside of the Cena stuff at the very beginning, episode 1, the last 4 episodes, I ran through them. I'm like, you know what? That's largely what I want from this show because I know they're not going to go deeper than it.
Yeah, my only other thought, it was, I think, too much wrestling. Like going through like the whole Elimination Chamber, like the whole Rumble, I think they did one of them. It felt like a lot of filler. Like, because aren't these normally 6 episodes? I think this one was 5. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But it felt like a lot of like just stretches where they're just showing wrestling. And there's not much like behind the scenes of it all. But guys, look, people they were covering got hurt. Some of the stories had to change, but it did feel the most real. Like I said,
it was very insightful into things we already knew about. Like, so many people got hurt. So many plans had to change. And for people who on the outside were decrying that as well, they should be better pivoting. I mean, that's true. You and I both said as much, but also they lost a ton of stars in an extremely short period of time. And that was contextualized over these 5 episodes.
Yep. Worth a watch. Worth a watch.
No doubt about that. Definitely worth watching. Okay, let's move over to NXT and let's kick it off where the show ended. The NXT Championship on the line. Tony D'Angelo defending against Naraku in a street fight. Robert Stone at the start of the show instituted a no-touch clause before the main event bell. He also spent different parts of the episode on the phone, sounding as if he had signed a talent to the brand, and a black SUV rolled up prior to this main event match. D'Angelo stormed out looking like a member of the Shield, taking red poison mist to the face at the bell and immediately getting thrown into the LED barricade and steel steps, then taking a suplex through 6 open chairs. Tony was eventually able to stop the barrage, slam Naraku through the regular barricade, and briefly brawl with him in gorilla position by Shawn Michaels during the break. They respectively grabbed a kendo stick and a crowbar. The steel obviously beat the bamboo in that area. Naraku introduced a ladder that D'Angelo threw over the ropes into him ringside. Then he avoided an Alabama slam through a table, but ate a seesaw into a trash can placed between the turnbuckles. Naraku then stopped a ringside powerbomb attempt, hitting Enter the Abyss on the mat before basically hitting an FU through the announce table. D'Angelo blocked a second missed attempt with his hand, giving Naraku a taste of his own medicine by rubbing the mist that was on his hand in his eyes. I loved that spot. He wore him out with a kendo stick and then used it for a low blow, dragging him onto the steel steps for a Uranagi through the table in the ring for the 1-2-3 to once again retain the NXT Championship. Excellent match, confusing result. As D'Angelo celebrated coming out of the crowd, Mike Santana made his official WWE debut as a signed superstar. He entered to the same theme music he used in TNA, but he stung among the fans and eyed Tony D as the show went off the air. All right, let's tackle the match first. It was awesome. An absolute train wreck in the best possible way. The most complete presentation of D'Angelo as champion to date, totally cleared their first meeting at Great American Bash, which, as we said after that show, and certainly now in retrospect, never should have happened. This was the exact stipulation and the exact booking that match should have been given. And a one-and-done defeat of Naraku, giving him the opportunity to regroup and challenge for the title again in a few months, would have made so much more sense if they did all of this at Great American Bash compared to beating him twice so definitively. Because that only leads us to ask, now what? Like, what else is there for Naraku to do in NXT? He debuted and immediately feuded with the NXT champion, pulled out every nasty trick in the book, and still got swept 2-0 by the guy. This is possibly a rare booking miss by HBK, especially considering D'Angelo has been so boring as a character up until this point. I simply do not understand that booking, even more so now that Santana has signed and debuted. Why not flip the title to Naraku, move D'Angelo into something else, ultimately have Santana beat Naraku for the title, and then go into the Santana-D'Angelo feud? It would keep the title picture fresh, give all 3 guys something to do. You could even run a triple threat at some point. And it would kickstart Santana's run with WWE in a major way. Look, I'm definitely excited for Santana that he got signed. Bro deserves this. He bet on himself, worked his ass off in TNA. His story is incredible. It's one of the best stories right now in wrestling, actually. He will make it to the WWE main roster eventually. It should be noted, Vic Joseph never said his name, continuing this awful trend with NXT debutants, especially considering Vic 100% knows him. He wrestled there before. He's called his matches, and he still can't say, look, it's Mike Santana.
So dumb.
But Santana kept his music, which begins with his name. So hopefully he's able to retain that, at least in some variation. Maybe they go Mark Santana, the front part being his real first name. I did expect the crowd to be a bit more energetic upon his debut, but it was kind of sudden. He appeared from behind them, so it was somewhat understandable. Anyway, this was the best work that we have gotten from the men's division since the main roster raided NXT several months ago. Terrific main event match, fun debut, rock solid end to the show. 4 stars, A-, 4 slabs of B for D'Angelo and Naraku, going out there and wrecking shit for however long it was, 13, 14, 15 minutes. There was no bread. There was no water. All they put out there was meat.
He don't want no water. He don't want no bread. All he wants is meat.
I feel like it's been a while since we dropped that. Stone backstage ignored a plea from Thea Hale for some time to talk before Natty barged in to decisively state that she was ending Jada Parker while getting into it with Thea. Why she needed to tell Stone that so demonstratively, I have no earthly idea. Lizzie Rain was having a crisis in the locker room after her loss last week. Hale was similarly upset about not getting Stone's attention, while Skylar Ray was bothered about not getting on TV, and Parker and Kendall Gray got into it over Natty being all in their business. Jada promised to finish it on the show. Natty, Carmen Petrovic, and Nikita Lyons confronted Hale later, with the leader saying that she is willing to invite Thea to the dungeon for training because right now she's nothing and what she's doing is not working. She said Hale is presently a soft bitch, just like Parker, who needs to get serious and get better. Seeing Thea together with the other faces, it kind of dawned on me she would be a great addition to Ren QCC in a little sister role. They were natural interacting in the segment, and Hale getting 3 different spots, all in the first 45 minutes of this show, after not being legitimately featured on NXT for a while, it offered hope that's going to change soon. It appeared to give away that she would factor into the scheduled match, especially considering how heavy-handed they were with the second Natty interaction, but that was a small price to pay for getting Thea on television. Gray with Ren Sinclair hit the ring for a face-to-face with number 1 contender Lola Vice. Kendall was glad that Lola earned another opportunity, as Vice reminded that Gray may be the future, but she's still the present and not ready to let it go yet. Lola figured Kendall needed validation, as she's still shy, insecure, and vulnerable, but Gray said the championship was all the confirmation she needed, and it's not weakness to be honest about her faults. No one in NXT can beat her at her best. Vice indicated that she didn't just want a match, she wanted a fight, and the faces knew exactly what that meant as she officially challenged to NXT Underground. Kendall said she'd whoop Lola's ass that way she can go back to shaking it. This was heavily scripted and recited, which is to be expected from both of them, so it was not necessarily disappointing for that reason. Vice should have been better at this juncture. Promos are clearly Gray's weakness. She should have plenty of opportunities to gain experience and hopefully improve now that she has a title around her waist. The content was fine, nothing overly unique, but the close was strong. And the underground booking is really smart. It's a necessary way to differentiate this match from their prior meetings. We did not need a third bout that went the same as the first 2. It would be real tough to understand Lola winning back the title. So this should almost certainly be Kendall overcoming the stipulation adversity, beating Lola at her own game, in her signature match, by the way, and most likely sending her up to the main roster as the match is scheduled for 2 weeks out after SummerSlam. The question with calling up Vice is whether she fits, considering there's tons of women on both shows right now, and as we talked about Tuesday, they are barely getting screen time. Plus, her boyfriend Damian Priest is over on SmackDown. And out of the 2, that one certainly does not need more women out of the 2 shows. Raw could definitely stand to add 1 to 2. Tatum Paxley and Lola Vice coming over would make a lot of sense. I believe WWE only places wrestlers who are in relationships on brands based on marriage or near marriage, like engagements. So perhaps Lola gets started on Raw, even though Priest is on SmackDown. Raw also just feels like a more natural home for her. It's also possible her primary focus is AAA for the time being. Either way, if they get requisite time, Underground has a chance to not only be fantastic, but potentially better than their last meeting, which is a tall mountain to climb. Jada fought Natty. Parker was aggressive early, smacking Natty across the face and regularly mouthing off, ensuring she knew that she's not soft.
What is the 5 fingers say to the face? What? Slap!
Jada landed the teardrop and her emote before getting her knee taken out ringside while distracting herself. Parker used Rings of Saturn during the break and ate a discus lariat and dragon screw coming out of it. Jada answered with a Samoan drop and Falcon Arrow while continuing to sell the knee. Natty avoided a second teardrop with a Michinoku driver response, and when Jada escaped the sharpshooter, she was able to drive Natty's knee into the steel steps before attacking the joint herself. Parker locked in the sharpshooter, so Natty's own move against her. as Carmen and Nikita argued over whether they should throw in the title, which on the surface seemed really strange because Natty would never even consider asking them to do that. And ultimately, the towel did get thrown into the ring off screen with none of us live seeing how it happened. When the camera panned back to a deeper angle, we saw Hale ran in, grabbed the towel, threw it into the ring. Parker dapped her up on the ramp as the segment ended. I could not understand why Jada was happy. The entire point of the feud was for Parker to get hard and prove that she can not only compete with Natty, but beat her. She won here without pinning or submitting her rival. How can that be satisfying for her character? I understand wanting to keep Natty strong if she's going to have a longer run in NXT and continue being in this gatekeeper role, but considering Kendall already beat her clean, there's no reason Jada could not as well. The key here is going to be whether this feud continues, and if it does, whether we get one final Jada Natty match, because you can definitely see this developing into a tag team storyline with Parker and Hale teaming up. But once they presumably get a win over, let's say, Petrovic and Lyons, we do need finality from the two main competitors. This got solid time at around, I want to say 12-ish minutes, and it was easily Jada's best work since returning a few months ago. It might have been the best one-on-one match of her career. So there's a lot to like about it. I'm just confused by the finish and her character's reaction to it. Kalani Jordan backstage showed Stone footage of her clearly getting a 1-2-3 on Vice last week that was not counted properly by the referee. Stone played the company line that the referee's decision is final, so Jordan questioned his integrity and dipped out. Out the Mud came through. They got a match with Birthright next week before Stone decided he wanted to talk to Bronco Nima privately to determine whether he would fight on the NXT or AAA card, as both are taking place on August 30th. Why he is so worried about a match booking for a card 5 weeks away, I have no idea whatsoever. I know the concept is to wedge drive OTM to a degree. This felt somewhat unnecessary to that end. While Lonnie was again her complaining self here, this time it was far less annoying and far more legitimate. She had a point and was unfairly dismissed by Stone out of convenience. So it's a step in the right direction for Lonnie, but Jordan has taken similar steps before, and then we always see the step backwards. Reina Volcan fought Skylar Ray. The presentation of Volcan was on point. She had a Gregorian chant-style rock song with natural disaster imagery. Definitely felt her presence through the screen. Reina hit a scoop power slam, tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, and really fun spinning elbow to the canvas. She ultimately won with a torture rack called Natural Disaster. Extremely strong debut. Terrible finisher. Okay, not terrible. That's unfair. It's extremely mediocre. What I would like to see is that torture rack as a really strong setup to an inverted F5 off-the-shoulder neck breaker, something similar out of the inverted fireman's carry setup, considering that is how the opponent is being held anyway. Basically, use strength to weaken the opponent and then finish them off, hey now, with something more substantial and more powerful. Otherwise, you get into the zone of Gunther's sleeper hold, where sure, it's believable, but it's not as impactful and demonstrative as an actual move. When Gunther hits a powerbomb or a chop or something like that, you go, oh my God, look at all the power behind that. No shit, the match is about to end. Her holding someone in her arms and then just bouncing up and down, I mean, it's a great visual, but it only gets you so far. Regardless, Volcan definitely looks the part. She moves well in the ring, given her size. Incredibly impressive debut that makes you want to buy up all of her stocks immediately. It does feel like a Zarya match is inevitable. NXT should probably wait on that and use it as an eventual write-off when Zarya gets called up to the main roster after she's regular NXT champion, not North American champion. It's probably a year away at this point, just given how many other women debuted and are debuting in 2026. As far as Skylar, you can see there's talent, but she is as generic as they come. That could be purposeful at the moment until they figure out what to do with her. But so far, these LFG call-ups, I mean, Tyra May Steele got released. Jasper Troy has fallen off the face of the earth. The whole chain gimmick has been terrible. Skylar Ray, we're seeing nothing from her. Shiloh Hill is the only one who's really stepped into a significant role at this point. Saquon Sugars, Noam Dar, and Romeo Moreno fought Dark State. Sugars attacked before the bell and tried to call plays for his team. It backfired right away. He was more effective on the subsequent hot tag, landing a nice Falcon Arrow transition into a basement dropkick. Moreno hit an impressive leaping springboard crossbody outside. Sugars countered the toss powerbomb finisher into a Hurricanrana, then drove Dion Lennox through the crow's nest base, almost with a Death Valley driver. That left Moreno prone to eat a double powerbomb and take the L. Saquon and Dion had to be pulled apart, continuing to go at each other after the bell. This went largely to expectation. The idea was that Sugars saw the red, the entire time and was more concerned about getting his licks in than earning the dub. Solid action to start the show. The long-term potential was almost entirely on the face side. Lennox has a chance. The others in Dark State are non-starters. As far as the Crow's Nest, NXT has got to reduce its reliance on that as a spot in matches. I know there's only so much that can be done in the limited space they have. It's gotten to the point now that it's getting overused to a silly degree in a 6-man tag team match, as opposed to a feud-ending scenario, a title match, whatever the case might be. You should not be using it for regular matches. Shiloh Hill posted a fun video on social media where he was searching for Danhausen's laboratory in Detroit to acquire a replacement tooth, though he thought he was just looking for a guy named Dan Hausen. It got resolved on TV. Danhausen was impressed that Hill was a tooth guy and then found him the perfect replacement, which after the fact he hoped wasn't cursed. Shiloh gave him some Bitcoin in exchange because he didn't have any human monies, and Danhausen thought it was cryptocurrency. So he was all about it. I loved that line. I wondered whether Shiloh is legitimately going to get a fake tooth installed, so they use this to explain moving away from the retainer. If so, pretty smart to mash it together. And that should be a good move for Hill. The whole power-up deal was incredibly shticky and ridiculous as a long-term gimmick. We called that out from the moment he debuted. Hill later showed up in Stone's office appearing possessed and shit. He said it was not the fault of the tooth, but rather what Tristan Angels has done to him. The fog is consuming him. He snapped out of it when Stone agreed to give him another match next week. This was a bit over the top, as is always the case with Shiloh. One step forward, one step back. We'll have to see where it goes from here, particularly next week. The bit with Danhausen was great. Probably could have just left it there. We do not need another Shiloh Hill Tristan Angels match. Hopefully this is the last one. Sean Spears fought Nico Vance. Izzy Dame was out with Vance, who got caught from behind during Spears' entrance. Spears botched some type of attempt at tope, got slammed ringside. He also struggled on the equivalent of a monkey flip off the ropes. Dame distracted a couple of times, the second resulting in a spinning DDT false finish. Spears called Vance a bitch to bait him out of the ring. Then he grabbed a steel chair despite, it being a regular match, not no disqualification. As Izzy got on the ring apron, Lizzie ran down to take her out, and Spears pulled an Eddie Guerrero, slamming the chair on the mat, throwing it into Vance's hands to escape with a disqualification win. The idea was that Nico had Sean beat, so the veteran had to outsmart the neophyte in order to get out of Dodge. It was relatively fun. Bringing Rain into the mix creates the opportunity for a mixed tag team affair with Dame on the back end. They're going to be fighting one-on-one singles next week, so they're not going to that right away. For a lower mid-card storyline I did not care much about going in, this actually exceeded expectations on Tuesday. Cam Hendricks backstage told Stone that his knee actually regressed over the last week. Now he's down to 62.4%, so he's not able to fight Mason Rook next week. Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights came through, with Miles asking Stone for a tag team title opportunity with Tavion, reuniting NQCC temporarily. Stone was hesitant, and Hendricks pointed out Bourne needed to defend his North American title. So Miles agreed to do that next week if they got a chance at Vanity Project in 2 weeks. Tavion was thrilled, and suddenly Hendricks got a fake text from an NXT trainer who told him he's 107% healthy. He can challenge for the title, which he wanted to do a couple of weeks ago. Now look, I have been down on Hendricks since his call-up, and I have not been shy about that. But this gimmick that he's been doing the last few weeks, updating the health status of his knee like a cowardly heel with fake percentages, and then jumping at an opportunity here when it presented itself, let's just say he's starting to win me over a little bit, even if I continue to believe he's up too soon and being pushed too hard. Further, he already got a title opportunity coming out of that one tag team win upon his debut. So logically, it is ridiculous that he's getting another one. The booking with Bourne and Heights will obviously lead to disaster, probably Miles not being there at the end of the match when Tavion needs him, turning him from over the moon excited about the opportunity to apocalyptically angry when they lose, resulting, of course, in the heel turn we've long expected. Real solid segment. I'm excited for the next 2 weeks, even if Hendricks is partially involved in it. Hank Walker fought Keanu Carver. Hank landed a nice boss man slam early. Keanu came back with a fallaway slam. Tank Ledger tried to rally his guy, but got chucked into the steel steps by Carver, who ate a tope suicida from Walker as retribution. Carver ultimately won with his tilting slam. Tank saved a post-match attack by Keanu, who dumped him into the announce table. When he tried to lift the steel steps as a weapon, EK Prosper flew in out of the crowd to double stomp Carver into the steel steps, the tag team adding honk honk with a perfect moonsault from Prosper ending it. Same deal as I've said before. Keanu does not work well with the larger guys. It's slow, plodding, not particularly exciting for the crowd because he's way too green to be on TV. Prosper was the injection of energy the segment needed. His presentation remains on point. The entrance music included. It all works. I'm not sure about the height of his ceiling, but he's got something. Overall, it was the most forgettable ho-hum segment on NXT, and also it's tough to see where it's going. Like another Carver Prosper match, the guy's already beat him twice. Now it's 3 baby faces against 1 heel. He's not going to go 1-on-3. So I'm not entirely sure like why they keep booking this in circles, but again, as I said previously with the Shiloh and Tristan feud, if they are going to do a match, one more, end it, and please move everyone on. So that wraps up NXT this week. I would actually call it a step forward from the last few, especially for the men's division. Look, talent-wise, it's still down significantly. They need to build up the ranks. But adding Santana, giving D'Angelo that solid second win over Naraku, despite my disagreement with the booking, really establishing him firmly as the NXT champion. Having Mason Rook around and some of these other guys getting featured. Like, it feels like they're starting to come up with something. The women still completely clear the men, and it's nice that they get so much time on NXT because they sure as shit aren't on Raw and SmackDown. And I hope by Friday and then again on Monday, we can stop repeating that a million times because it was incredibly frustrating through the weekend into this week. Still plenty to cover for you on this episode. Before we get to all of that, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling whenever breaking news happens at the end of a major wrestling show here in these United States, and exclusive news, analysis, editorial content every single week. That is what we are providing to you. It's bonus content for your contributions to keep this show on the air. We would greatly appreciate it, as it is our goal to continue delivering performance-enhancing audio into your earholes for the foreseeable future. Again, $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. Support your favorite show. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, let's move over to AEW. We're going to break down much of what happened across Dynamite and Collision first. Then we'll do your AEW Redemption preview at the end of the show. Again, there are timestamps if you're listening to this on the weekend and you just want to hear match predictions and breakdowns of the pay-per-view card, you can skip over to that. But we do still have plenty to discuss from TV. Unfortunately, 3 of 14 matches this week were storyline relevant. The go-home week before a pay-per-view, that is a paltry 21%. And even if I gave another allowance, which I do think is fair, that would be 4 of 14. That's 29%, which is incredibly rough. Most of the problem remains Collision. I believe they went over. I'll have to check as we go. Dynamite was a solid go-home to a B pay-per-view that has some serious issues from a card standpoint, but Collision was just a waste of time, as per usual. On Collision, the Young Bucks got a promo package saying they are focused on regaining the tag team titles to join Kenny Omega as champions and put the entirety of the Elite back on top. They wondered about Death Riders setting them up through Will Ospreay, saying they don't trust either of them despite having recently teamed together. So clearly, they're going to challenge for the AEW tag team titles, right?
No.
Now, these guys can generally talk, but this was so crazy scripted, it was actually tough to get through. The result was a match challenge for Redemption against Ospreay and Mox. Immediately after the commercial break, Cage and Cope challenged Claudio Castagnoli and Pac to a title match at Redemption. This stemmed from a post-match attack last week, but there was no specific reason to grant those two a match, especially considering they had just successfully defended against their faction last week. I could be wrong. I believe AEW played the Cage and Cope promo a second time on the same episode. Either that or they were repeating themselves. The Bucks confronted them at the end of it, saying they held the titles 3 times. Cage said they lost them that many times because they didn't treat them as championships, but Cope dapped them up anyway. Both matches, they make sense to a degree. The builds and the title challenge aspect, just incredibly lazy. I'm sorry, that's true. On Collision, Will Ospreay backstage explained he asked Tony Khan to fight Adam Brooks because he knows him from Australia and needed a warm-up match. Sorry, that doesn't make it relevant. Not when the dude randomly fights people on TV all the time. Jon Moxley then accepted the Bucks challenge since he's always hated the Elite, as Ospreay kind of turned his back and stood in the shadow behind him. As always, Mox can talk. I just find myself disinterested in this. Ospreay won by delivering like 10 forearms to the back of Brooks' head. The dude stopped moving after the second one. He sold death. The referee just kept letting him get murdered. Like, you would fire a referee in reality for not ending the match sooner. Then Brooks tapped out after not moving for 30 seconds while he was getting forearms to the back of his head. I'm watching this. I'm like, how the hell do you end a match this way?
So dumb.
On Collision, Kevin Knight retained the TNT title over AR Fox in what was the match of the night, to be fair. Fox, who is one of the most inventive wrestlers in the world, did some insane running Canadian destroyer with Knight's body seated on the middle rope looking down the ramp. He followed with a 450. Fox had done nothing to deserve the title match, of course. As soon as it ended, 3 Don Callis family randoms beat a trio of jobbers in 2 minutes. Conglomeration, Mike Bailey and the Rascals saved a post-match attack. Then Lethal Twist watched all this from afar. What is this supposed to accomplish? Who cares about any of these people other than Knight? On Collision, Darby Allin, wearing a hood, spray painted a car to read, "Kevin needs to be humbled." Then he lit the car on fire because he's Darby Allin, saying he would see how far Knight is willing to go when he challenges him for the title on Dynamite. As a 2-time, I believe, TNT champion and recent AEW champion who was wronged by Kevin, Darby was certainly deserving of a title match, even without direct specific build for this particular opportunity. This was basically the lone title match on TV out of like 15 over the last 2 weeks that made perfect sense. On Dynamite, Knight, of course, retained the TNT title over Allin. Darby hit an Avalanche Code Red that Kevin sold as a full release, so he followed with a regular Code Red. He was bleeding from the head, Darby was at this juncture. He had a coffin drop ringside. Allin ducked a belt shot with the referee down, hit a Scorpion Death Drop. Knight then drilled him with the title in the back, put him in the Tree of Woe, hit a hanging coast to coast, adding a UFO for the 1-2-3. Knight obviously needed to win because he's getting an AEW title match literally for no reason. Allin was protected in the loss, sure. It's also kind of ridiculous to have a recent world champion who went through hell during that reign lose here because of a belt shot, considering he's so hardcore. It was the match of the night. 4 stars A-, 3.75 stars B+, right on the borderline, only due to the finish. It definitely would have been in the A- range. Without it, Knight beat a world champion to legitimize him a little bit more for Redemption. But again, really none of this should be happening in the first place. On Dynamite, Ospreay was all hyped up in a backstage segment with Kenny Omega as they would be teaming together. He was confident they would be successful and tried to treat Omega like he was old and would need to take a rest during the match. Mox interrupted to say there's no tension in this room, adding the tension himself, of course, before leaving. This was Ospreay at his best, just showing his personality, having fun, not trying to overdo it, to overact, the whole 9 yards. Just let Will be himself. On Dynamite, Ospreay, Omega, and Mox beat Brian Cage, Hechicero, and Jake Doyle for some reason. This all-star trio, arguably the top 3 wrestlers in the company, needed 15 minutes to beat that group. Omega accidentally V-triggered Mox in the face. He combined with Ospreay for a V-trigger and hidden blade on Hechicero, who clearly had to lose because he's a CMLL guy on AEW TV, and heaven forbid AEW let Cage, who loses all the time to much smaller guys, take another fall in this match, or Doyle for that matter. Mox and Omega got into it after the bell, so Ospreay got shoved when he tried to play Peacemaker, leading to Will and Kenny getting heated, so the Bucks came down. They got shoved by Mox, leading to all 4 brawling, with Omega taking a back elbow from Ospreay inadvertently. Then RPG Vice ran down for no reason whatsoever, so Omega went to V-trigger them. As he tried, Knight hit a tope belt shot from the ramp into the ring. Kenny either took a perfect hard way, or he bladed immediately, and the show ended. This was all sensible as a way to build heat between Omega and Ospreay where none should otherwise exist. And unlike what is happening with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes in WWE, they started this with more than enough time to expand on it and create a deeper gulf between them before All In rolls around. Meanwhile, WWE, similar timing, few days earlier, their pay-per-view is next weekend. On Collision, the ROH title was on the line. Bandito retained over Adam Priest. Adam Priest was 0-8 in AEW singles matches. He gets an ROH title match. This after he lost a national title match in May and only had 1 victory in Ring of Honor since. Why the hell was this a title match? Why the hell was it on AEW TV? On Dynamite, Brodito beat Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada. Bandito pinned Fletcher with 21-plex, the idea being it would establish him as a legitimate challenger for the title when he was given the opportunity only for bumping into Fletcher backstage. This was the second best match of the night. For anyone who takes issue with the Soul Snatcher, the 21-plex finisher setup is perhaps even more ridiculous. I'd go 3.75 stars B+ on this. Brodito, super fun tag team. Okada did crocodile tears apology to Fletcher after the bell, and Fletcher screamed in his face because now he's the one who's a total asshole in this faction. On Collision, the Dogs did a public service announcement saying Bang Bang Gang promotes gang violence and banging. The Guns have a multi-generational history of misogyny. Ace Austin has a problematic haircut, and Juice Robinson is pretending to be a doctor. Ultimately, they need to put their guns down. This was easily the best of these to date. I would not have expected the Dogs to be decent from like a character standpoint. Certainly more believable than their foils. Bang Bang Gang in this case. Bang Bang Gang later commiserated in someone's living room with a singles challenge. Annoys me that they cannot come up with their own promo gimmick. They're doing 2 words for you in 2026, stealing it from Billy Gunn through Degeneration X, from Degeneration X through Billy Gunn. It's like, can you guys do your own thing? Like, why is this so difficult? On Collision, Triangle of Madness and a promo taped from Japan. It was actually just Sisters of Sin. They showed off that they have won the Hearts of Stardom Trios Championships. Sin challenged Divine Dominion for the tag team titles in a hardcore match. This was their best promo ever. It was still extremely mediocre, but it was improved. By the way, as Sisters of Sin, they have lost 3 to 4 straight AEW tag team matches. So they were wholly undeserving of a title opportunity. Not that it matters in this company. So is their comeuppance going to be losing the Stardom titles they have now won back to Stardom talent on a Stardom show after everything Tekla did to Stardom on AEW TV? Like, please tell me that's not the way this is going. On Dynamite, Divine Dominion retained the tag team titles shockingly over Sisters of Sin in a no disqualification match. Dominion wore hockey sweaters for some reason. Then they set up their titles in perfect position for the Sisters to counter them into the straps, which was completely idiotic. They won with a tombstone and double chokeslam. Inventive. While this match was extremely rough, it got more time than the women did across Raw and SmackDown combined this week, so that was nice at least. The division is in rough shape outside of Dominion and the Birds. On Collision, the TBS title was on the line. Hikaru Shida retained over Queen Aminata in the main event. This actually got time. It was the only real women's match on the show. Aminata was a completely undeserving challenger who got a shot because she saved a previously undeserving challenger who was getting attacked post-match. Contender for second best match of the night, but Shida needed to cheat with the ropes in order to beat Aminata. Like, I understand she's a heel. Aminata is not someone who should need to get an escape loss. Maya World saved in a post-match attack. So I assumed, well, since she saved an attack, now she's going to get a title match. Literal rinse and repeat. And guess what? She did. On Collision, Athena beat a jobber in 2 minutes. Then the Brawling Birds walked down and beat 2 jobbers in 3 minutes. Riveting. And lastly, on Collision, Jack Perry beat Nick Wayne to open the show. This was Wayne's first AEW match since April and second in the last 13 months. I know he's been wrestling in Ring of Honor. He did a stint in Japan as well. He just disappeared off screen. His mother was dropped. Kip Sabian, I guess, was dropped, all of them. So that's what Nick Wayne is doing. Anyway, that was AEW TV this week. We do have a little bit more to discuss from Dynamite and Collision. We will do that right now as we move into our AEW Redemption preview. This is already a 10-match card with some pre-show stuff likely to be added. Half of these matches are like thrown together in one way or another. We'll go through them one by one, give you a prediction for the match, thoughts on the storytelling and booking going forward. And we'll, of course, wrap up anything that happened on TV that we did not already cover. So the first match, which I don't even know when this was announced, Jack Perry, Beast Mortos, Commander, Mike Bailey, Nick Wayne, and El Clone in an international championship #1 contendership ladder match. This was created out of thin air. None of these people should be in the class of deserving #1 contenders for this title, which is the #2 men's title, especially not Mortos and Clone, who have not been around, and Wayne, who just lost to Perry on TV. Why would he get another opportunity? That doesn't make a shred of sense. But even the other 3 are pretty random. Also, why is this a ladder match? It's literally a stipulation to do a stipulation on a card that already has a few. Now, the international champion coming out of this show can be either Fletcher or Bandito. We will discuss that in a bit. Bandito is already the ROH champion, and I don't think they're looking to merge the ROH title and the international title. Out of the people involved in this match, if we're doing process of elimination, it's not going to be Wayne, it's not going to be Clone, it's not going to be Mortos, because AEW will never give the CMLL guys anything. Bailey, Commander, and Perry are your final 3. Bailey is going to feud with Knight on the back end for the TNT title, so he doesn't need to be part of this. So that brings us to Commander or Perry. Commander would make for the best match. Perry's the guy who just signed a new contract. Might as well give him a ladder match win and a title shot. That is my guess Jack Perry walks out as the number 1 contender. TBS title on the line. Hikaru Shida defending against Maya World. On Dynamite, they got a nonsensical call and response promo segment. If Maya had beaten Shida during that prior Owen tournament, getting this opportunity would have made sense. Instead, as I mentioned earlier, it comes at the end of a lazy string of title matches for the TBS strap where someone who doesn't deserve it got a challenge, lost, got attacked after, someone saved, they got the next challenge. It was just one after another after another. Now, I don't believe that Shida won this title to be a long-term champion. And there still seems to be a lot of emotion behind Maya, the way she was booked through the Owen, the match with Mercedes. I'm going to guess that Maya wins this title. They book it as an upset. She drops it relatively soon, maybe takes it into All In, maybe doesn't take it into All In. Maybe she even loses it a couple weeks from now. It just seems like a situation where I don't think Shida's accomplishing anything with the title. Giving Maya an opportunity with it is better than not. And she has fan sentiment behind her. And if you're going to strike with her now and not wait a few months or a few years, then you literally do it now. You don't wait any further. You don't need to wait 3 weeks, a month, do it at All In. Just do it right now. So I have Maya beating Hikaru to win the TBS title. We'll see if it actually happens. That's my guess. National Championship, Mark Davis defending against Andrade El Idolo. On Collision, Andrade was attacked backstage by Davis. I originally thought this match was happening on TV since it's the 5th men's title and a huge step down for Andrade. On Dynamite, Davis wondered whether Andrade could scrape himself off the pavement, and they've made it clear in other matches, Fletcher and Bandito being one of them, that Don Callis family's banned from ringside, will not interfere, etc. That has not been said about this. So the question you need to ask yourself is, will Andrade be leveled up for the AEW championship in the next few months? If you believe coming out of All In, he's going to be a legitimate top contender for that title, then you don't give him this one. If that's not going to be the case, and you feel like you need a payoff of some kind for Andrade's booking, where he was every single week going face-to-face with MJF, staring at the title, saying he wanted it, in promos with Don Callis family, saying he wanted it, so on and so forth. If you're not going to be able to pay that off, you got to give him something. So originally, I was having Davis win this match and retain the title because Callis family screws Andrade. And Andrade, by the way, let me repeat this. Even if he doesn't get the main AEW title, he could be a great opponent for Fletcher for the international title at Collision. Or any other TNT title. Andrade and Kevin Knight would be a much better match and a more exciting title for him to hold than this one. It just seems like he's kind of getting relegated. And if that's the case and you're using Davis as a transitional champion to strap up Andrade, that way you can make Andrade versus whomever a big match at All In for a title. I think that's the move that you make. So I have Andrade beating Davis and winning the title here. Chris Jericho against Tommaso Ciampa, no holds barred. On Collision, Ciampa beat Myron Reed. This was only held so Ciampa could fight in Boston. After the match, he told Paul White, who was excruciating on commentary, because largely he was with Tony Schiavone. He repeated what he did last week. The Psycho Killer is not afraid of the Painmaker. Then he added the stipulation, which would have worked for their last match as well. There was no further build here. Until I'm given reason to believe otherwise, it just feels like this is going the same direction as the Jericho-Ricochet feud, which ended with Jericho winning, even though Ricochet's the younger guy who has more runway. And just kind of feels like the Painmaker's going to beat the Psycho Killer here. And if that's the case, that's disappointing. So I'm going to go with Jericho because I'm not being given reason to believe that someone other than him is going to win a feud, even if they're younger. And when I say younger, it's not like Tommaso Ciampa's 28. I mean, the guy's over 40. But you would think he'd get the victory here. I don't know. The way they booked it at Beach Break, it just seems like they're going to put Jericho over. So yeah, I have Jericho winning. Jay White and Juice Robinson against the Dogs in a double chain match. On Dynamite, White beat Clark Connors in his return. He won with a triangle choke bridge instead of Switchblade. I didn't love that as a finish compared to Switchblade. I'd like to see it executed a second time before fully judging it, especially since he felt that he needed to hit Switchblade after the bell anyway. David Finlay attacked, leading to a BBG save. Juice swung a chain around, which, combined with the whole Dogs concept, led to the stipulation being offered in a post-match promo backstage. As far as I know, it looks like Gabe Kidd is cleared. Him coming back makes sense. The Dogs have this relationship with Death Riders. BBG has a relationship kind of with Cage and Cope, but they have their own match to worry about. So because of the stipulation, it just seems like there's a lot more runway for the Dogs to win, even though there are other members of BBG. I also don't like that acronym, so I'm probably not going to say it again after this show. I'm going to have the dogs win. We've also gone through a few matches already. I have babyface victory after babyface victory. So this is an opportunity for the heels to win, push this further down the line, and maybe do some type of mega faction warfare match at All In. Or maybe not, and Silver King is wrong. Tag Team Championship, Cage and Cope defending against Claudio and Pac. On Dynamite, Cage and Cope are cutting another promo. These guys do not shut up when the challengers attack them head on, driving them into road cases, with Christian Cage taking twice the beating of Adam Copeland. Pac thought it was audacious for them to have issued a challenge. Then he talked shit while gripping Cope's face hard, decrying them as legends who would fall. This would have been great as the onus for a tag team challenge. They got it completely backwards. They did it after the fact. Same with another match that we're going to talk about soon where a title shot was given before it was earned or deserved. You know, there's a world in which Claudio and Pac could win these titles, especially if for some reason with all the WWE talent that AEW is about to bring in, they want to have a real WWE heavy tag team title match at All In involving people who are younger and not on the legend side, which Cage and Cope obviously are. My original thought for All In, and I believe it's what a lot of us expected, was Cage and Cope, the Young Bucks, and FTR in a triple threat match, probably TLC of some kind. I still think FTR can come back and join that match. AEW is in Detroit next week. You have to assume Motor City Machine Guns will debut at that point. New Day can debut, I believe, at some point between there and All In. So now all of a sudden, if you add both of them to that match, it's a 5-way, probably with one of those stipulations, and they try to put on like the most epic tag team match possible. But I think you want Cage and Cope in that spot, not Claudio and Pac. And again, they're really undeserving of even being in this match, let alone winning the titles. And it wouldn't make sense unless one of Cage or Cope is injured for them to do a swap here. So yeah, I have the champions retaining, and I just don't really see it going any other way. The Young Bucks will fight Mox and Ospreay. See, this is a tough booking here because the Bucks need to get built up into that tag team title match, whereas Ospreay is number one contender for the main event of All In, and Mox is literally a champion, so they can't really lose. This seems like a potential Death Riders interference type of situation, even if not, just based on pure star power and ability. And people praise the Young Bucks as one of the greatest tag teams of all time, something I've never bought into, but in a tag team affair, they should have the advantage over talent because of their experience as a team. Regardless, you have to have Mox and Ospreay win this, probably Ospreay doing so in a fashion that is violent and more violent than necessary, which angers Omega, and they kind of boil up in that way the following Wednesday on Dynamite. So I have Mox and Ospreay winning, and the Bucks will have enough time to kind of rehab themselves and get back into the tag team title picture before All In. International Championship, Kyle Fletcher defending against Bandito. On Dynamite, Knight was proud with himself for setting the record for most TNT title defenses without Callis family help. Fletcher took issue with this, getting in his faction partner's face and saying that he would ensure the family is banned from ringside for this match too. Having a faction this large and always making it so there are internal struggles, it's getting ridiculous. It basically never stops, no matter who joins nor who leaves. This was the case earlier with Fletcher and Okada too. The shit is just so damn repetitive. I'll remind, Bandito did nothing initially to deserve the title match. It was only made after he bumped into Fletcher backstage and Kyle got angry over that. Now, after the fact, Bandito pinned Fletcher in a tag team affair. So it made sense that he would get such an opportunity. This is the first of 2 champion versus champion matches on the show. And of course, only one title is on the line in both of those matches. I have Fletcher retaining. I can't imagine them making Bandito a double champion. And by the way, this guy just lost a title match to Mox the prior pay-per-view. And every time he bubbles up to challenge someone serious in AEW, he loses despite already being ROH champion. They could double strap him. They're both great wrestlers. I don't know that you're getting a huge advantage in terms of potential feuds or anything like that going into All In, making the change. So I just have Fletcher retaining, and maybe we're getting Fletcher and Okada and Takeshita in a triple threat at All In. That actually makes a lot of sense. I could see that being the direction they go. But regardless, Fletcher walks out still international champion. Women's Championship, Tekla defending against Willow Nightingale. On Collision, Mercedes Moné in an interview said she would win the title at All In and did not care who she faced for it. She said they are both hiding behind Poison and a smile respectively in Japan, but neither can hide from her when the bell rings. Mercedes has been much better on the mic over the last year. She was horrible in this segment. All over the place, flubbing lines, repetitive, just not good. On Dynamite, Mick Foley was back on TV to host a confrontation between Tekla and Willow. Tekla basically suggested Willow is trying to hide a bunch of poison deep down, masking it with a smile, so she'd bring it out and prove that she's ugly. Nightingale retorted that Tekla's entire act is a facade. She talks big because she feels small. Willow calling her short when she's maybe an inch and a half on her at most is pretty funny. Mick separated them, saying he sees himself in Willow. Tekla told him to shut up, which made sense because he had no business injecting himself in that promo. Mick, this has absolutely nothing to do with you, bro.
Thank you.
Nightingale called her a dumb bitch, which got a nice pop. She said she'd go as far as she needs to beat her. Tekla ultimately smacked Willow with her leather jacket, then hid behind Foley to deliver a blind microphone shot to the head. Willow pounced her before she could get smacked with a belt in the ring afterward. Even with Tekla's incredibly forced promo style, this was the best women's talking segment AEW has done in a while. It's better build for a B-show title match than WWE has done for either of its primary women's titles going into SummerSlam. WWE should be embarrassed by that. But conversely, good for AEW, actually injecting life into this division for the first time in a while. This is one of my most anticipated matches on the entire show. And now that I'm saying it and thinking about it, I think it's my most anticipated match on the entire show. I could see the booking go either way. I could see Tekla retain. I could see Willow win. As I've also mentioned, I could see a triple threat with both of them and Mercedes at All In. And I actually believe a triple threat for that show is by far the best possible outcome. The question is going to be, of course, who walks out of this show with the title and who walks into that show with the title. And theoretically, if you were going to build to a triple threat, you would not switch it here. You would have Tekla win. Willow gets screwed. She deserves a spot in that match. Mercedes is angry about it. So you have pure babyface Willow, pure heel Tekla, and then tweener heel Mercedes. That's the way I would do it. There's just been something ever since Willow returned, since they unnecessarily stripped her of the TBS title, and all of the booking they've done to this point, that has me believing she is going to win the championship on this show and take it into All In. Whether that's one-on-one with Mercedes, so you get true babyface heel, then you can put Tekla in the Stardom Trios match against some random trio, and maybe they do, Stardom, actually get a big win at All In, which would be cool partnership. There's other things you can do with Tekla. If she's not in this spot, it feels like Tekla really deserves to be in this women's title match at the biggest show of the year against Mercedes, the biggest women's wrestler in the company. But it's just, ever since this was bubbled up and Willow was made number one contender, ever since that happened, I've believed she's going to win the title. So I'm not going to change my prediction. But I do ultimately think a triple threat at All In would be the best for everyone in the division and for the division itself as a whole. So I have Willow beating Tekla for the title. Will not be disappointed or surprised if it stays on Tekla's shoulder. And lastly, the AEW Championship, Kenny Omega defending against Kevin Knight. On Dynamite, Mega cut a post-show promo where he didn't say much of anything. For that reason, I'm glad it did not air on TV. The close with Knight and the belt shot tope, much stronger. We've already talked about this a bunch, and despite all the time we've spent breaking down these other matches, there's so much less to say about this. Knight does not even deserve this opportunity. Omega, the way he gave it to him was absolutely ridiculous. It's another champion versus champion match for no reason whatsoever. We all know we're not getting Kevin Knight against Will Ospreay at All In. So unless AEW does something mind-numbing and switches the title here purely as a swerve, and then Omega wins it back on Dynamite, unless I do something like that, I cannot see any reason for the outcome of this to be something other than Omega beating Knight clean, which means the TNT champion will have been defeated for really no reason whatsoever. And then, of course, he'll have to defend that title down the line. But Omega should walk out as AEW champion, and maybe they do something in the post-match to involve, like, Callis family comes out, and then Ospreay comes out to save, and Death Riders also help. And therefore, there's this big confrontation and a big blow-up between Omega and Ospreay at the end of the show. Because they got to do something. They cannot end the show on Omega beating Knight and then just go off the air. So that is my bigger prediction, that we get a segment like that rather than just the match prediction, which Omega retaining is something we all expect. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade, again, with AEW, it's difficult because you know the match quality is generally going to be high. Like, I actually believe that like Mark Davis Andrade is going to be super solid. Jericho and Ciampa, they've already shown they can put on a real good match together. Cage Cope, Claudio and Pac, a lot of talent in that ring. Bucks, Mox, and Ospreay, super talented. Fletcher and Bandito should be a banger. Tekla and Willow should be great. And Omega and Knight is going to be a great match. So from a pure match quality standpoint, the show should be fantastic, which AEW usually delivers that way on pay-per-view. But in terms of going in and caring about these matches and actually believing that they're going to have massive impact on the following show that's coming up, I'm just not there at all. So I'm going to go in with an expectation of, man, it's tough. 88 out of 100, a B+, which I think is generous without going overboard and leaning on match quality to take them there over storytelling and development for the show that actually matters in 1 month's time. They have every opportunity to succeed that grade and prove me wrong. Of course, plenty of room to fall below it as well. So that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. A reminder, we will be back at some point Sunday or Monday with your AEW Redemption analysis. Then on Tuesday, we will definitely have a WWE episode for you, whether that is a SummerSlam Ultimate Preview, part 1 of an Ultimate Preview, or we do the Ultimate Preview separately on Wednesday. That I cannot tell you right now, but you'll get at least 1, if not 2, WWE episodes during the next week. Next Thursday, we'll talk NXT and AEW, and then Saturday and Sunday night next week, you'll have your WWE SummerSlam instant analysis. If you have not subscribed to the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, make sure you do that as soon as possible. You can find our subscribe links on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. The link in our profile has all those subscribe links. You can also join our free Slack channel and talk with other Getting Overheads about professional wrestling all week long. Find us on social media at Getting Overcast. And don't forget,
It's all about the five.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. All right, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast for Vintage Chris Vanini. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.